It was just another chilly Tuesday morning in the quiet town of Ashbridge, a slice of Americana nestled between rolling hills and endless farmland. Officer Thomas Rourke, a 12-year veteran of the Ashbridge Police Department, sat in his cruiser outside the local elementary school. He was sipping lukewarm coffee from a chip thermos, nodding to passing parents when the school bell rang its cheerful chime. The crossing guard waved, kids poured in, and everything was normal. Routine was comfort to Rourke. Predictable. But as he watched the usual rush of backpacks and bright smiles, he noticed a little girl walking alone, hugging her coat tight. She was tiny, maybe 6 or 7, with scraggly blonde hair and a tattered pink backpack that had clearly seen better days. What caught his attention, though, was how slowly she walked, dragging her feet like she didn't want to be there. Or anywhere. He frowned slightly. He didn't recognize her. In a town as small as Ashbridge, that was rare. 10 minutes later, Rourke stepped into the front office of Ashbridge Elementary. He was known there not just as a cop, but as a friend. He made a point to visit the schools every week. It kept the kids comfortable with law enforcement and helped build trust. "Morning, Debbie," he greeted the school secretary, a plump woman with laugh lines that framed her entire face. "Tommy. Just missed the bell," she said with a wink. "Coffee's still hot if you want some." He smiled and shook his head. "I'm good, thanks." "Hey, do you happen to know the name of the little girl who just came in? Real small, pink backpack, kind of sad-looking?" Debbie raised an eyebrow, tapping into her mental files. Oh, that sounds like Lily. Lily Garrison. She's new, transferred just last week. Quiet kid. Comes in alone. No emergency contacts on file either, which is a little strange. I sent a notice home with her yesterday." Rourke nodded thoughtfully. Something tugged at his instincts. He'd been in law enforcement long enough to trust them. Just as he turned to leave, Debbie called out again, holding up a small folded paper. "Actually, you might want to see this." He took the note, expecting it to be a drawing or maybe a parent request. But as he unfolded the lined sheet of paper, scrawled in the shaky handwriting of a child, his breath caught. The note read, "My name is Lily. If someone finds this, I might be gone soon. Please help my mommy. She's still in the basement. Don't tell the man." Rourke froze. The buzz of fluorescent lights overhead suddenly felt deafening. He reread the note. Then again. He looked up at Debbie, whose eyes had gone wide. "Where does she live?" he asked, already moving toward the door. I don't know," she stammered. "No address on file yet. But I think she takes the West Creek bus route." Rourke broke into a run. Officer Rourke's cruiser screeched onto the narrow two-lane road that snaked alongside West Creek. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, the note burning a hole in his pocket. Every second counted. Somewhere out there was a little girl with a secret and a mother possibly trapped in a basement. And someone dangerous was involved. He clicked his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4. I need all available information on a recent resident, Lily Garrison. Age approximately 7. No records filed at Ashbridge Elementary. Likely on the West Creek bus route. This is urgent." "Copy that, Unit 4. "Stand by," came the calm voice of dispatcher Carla, though even she sounded rattled. As he sped along the bus route, Rourke scanned every mailbox and porch for any sign of a family with a child that age. Then, about 3 miles down, he spotted it, a crooked mailbox with peeling letters that spelled Garrison. It sat in front of an old, sagging house swallowed by trees. The windows were dark. The lawn looked like it hadn't been mowed in months. He slowed the cruiser and turned into the gravel drive, careful not to attract attention. The house gave off an eerie stillness, as if holding its breath. Rourke stepped out, his hand resting near his holster. He approached the front door and knocked 3 times, firmly. "No answer. Police department. Anyone home?" Silence. He stepped off the porch and circled the side of the house, peeking in windows. Most were covered in thick curtains or boarded up entirely. That's when he noticed the basement window on the side, partially cracked and small enough to miss unless you were looking. He crouched and peered inside. It was pitch black, but he saw the faintest flicker of movement. Then a face, pale, bruised, and wide-eyed, appeared for a second before disappearing again. "Ma'am," he called out, voice low but firm. "This is Officer Rourke with the Ashbridge PD. Are you all right?" A faint tap came from the window, 1 tap, then 2. Deliberate. Like Morse code. Rourke pulled out his flashlight and shined it into the basement. It was cluttered with junk, old furniture, boxes, tools. Then, in the far corner, he saw it. A woman tied to a support beam, duct tape across her mouth, eyes pleading. His heart pounded. This was real. The girl's note was real. He moved quickly back to his cruiser and radioed in. "Unit 4 requesting immediate backup at 218 West Creek Drive." Confirmed hostage situation. Possible domestic abduction. One adult female restrained in basement. Proceed with caution, unknown male suspect may be inside. Backup en route, ETA 4 minutes, Carla confirmed. Rourke drew his weapon and returned to the front porch. He didn't have 4 minutes. If the man was in there, if he suspected police were near, anything could happen to the woman or to Lily if she came home unexpectedly. He knocked again, harder this time. Then the door creaked open. A man stood there, mid-40s, unshaven, wearing a grease-stained flannel and jeans. His eyes narrowed when he saw Rourke. "Can I help you, officer?" he asked, voice flat. Rourke kept his expression neutral, his badge displayed. "We received a welfare call. Routine check. Mind if I come in for a quick look?" The man's jaw twitched. "Everything's fine. No need to bother us." Rourke took a step forward. "I insist." There was a pause, a tense moment where everything hung in the air. Then the man slammed the door shut. Rourke heard the lock click, then running footsteps inside. Officer Rourke didn't hesitate. He backed up and kicked the door with full force. The wooden frame splintered with a crack and swung open. He entered the house, weapon drawn, moving quickly but carefully. His instincts screamed danger, every step crunching over debris and dust. "Police. Don't move," he shouted. The house was dark, the curtains drawn tight. The air smelled of mildew and something worse, decay maybe. He moved through the front room, scanning. A toppled lamp, an ashtray overflowing on a coffee table, half-eaten food, signs of a place lived in, but not lived well. Suddenly, a crash from the back of the house. Rourke darted down the hallway, past a kitchen lined with dirty dishes and cigarette butts. He found a narrow door slightly ajar, likely leading to the basement. Just beyond it, muffled footsteps thumped down wooden stairs. He yanked it open, flashlight in one hand, pistol in the other, descending fast. "Stay where you are," he shouted again. The beam of light caught the man at the bottom of the stairs. He was fumbling with something in his hand, keys or maybe a padlock. He looked up, startled. For a split second, their eyes met and Rourke saw it, that flash of something feral. Dangerous, the man turned and bolted toward the back corner of the basement. "Drop it," Rourke ordered. The man didn't. Instead, he grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and turned to swing. Rourke ducked and tackled him hard, both of them slamming into a pile of old mattresses. The pipe clattered away. They grappled, fists flying, and Rourke took a punch to the jaw. He grunted but fought through it, managing to pin the man's arm behind his back. "Get off me," the man roared. "You're under arrest," Rourke growled. "You're done." He cuffed him roughly and hauled him up, pushing him against the wall. In the dim flashlight beam, Rourke finally turned his attention to the corner of the room. The woman was still there, slumped but alive. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded frantically. He hurried over and removed the tape from her mouth. "Ma'am, you're safe now," he said gently, kneeling down to cut the ropes. She gasped for breath. "My daughter, Lily, please tell me she's okay." "She's at school," Rourke assured her, heart aching. "She's the reason I'm here." The woman broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Moments later, the basement door burst open and backup poured in, 2 deputies and EMTs behind them. Rourke handed over the suspect, explaining everything quickly before returning to the woman. "We've got you," one of the paramedics said as they began checking her vitals. "She's going to need medical attention," Rourke told them. "And protective custody. If there's anyone else connected to him, she's alone," the woman interrupted weakly. "He made sure of that." One of the deputies took the man upstairs, reading him his rights. Rourke remained behind a moment longer. He looked around the basement again, saw the chains, the mattress in the corner, the makeshift toilet bucket. His stomach turned. Then he spotted something else, a small shoe. Pink. Child's size. He knelt and picked it up. The woman noticed and said quietly he kept her down here too, before he started letting her go to school again. Said it'd make us look normal. Rourke clenched his jaw. There was no telling how long this had been going on, but one thing was certain. Lily had saved her mother's life, and possibly her own. Later that afternoon, Officer Rourke sat in a quiet room at the Ashbridge police station, opposite Lily Garrison. The child sat bundled in a fleece blanket, sipping from a paper cup of hot cocoa. A female officer had helped clean her up, but the shadows under her eyes remained. She looked small and fragile, but her stare was focused, deep and older than it should have been. Rourke didn't rush her. He knew better than to push. He'd dealt with traumatized kids before, but something about Lily stuck with him more than usual. Maybe it was her bravery, how she'd managed to write that note, sneak it into school, knowing the risk. After a moment, Lily looked up. "Did you find her?" "Yes," Rourke said gently. "Your mom is safe now. She's at the hospital getting help. She's going to be okay. Lily blinked fast, holding back tears. He said if I told anyone, he'd make her disappear. Rourke leaned forward. You were very brave to tell us, Lily. What you did helped us stop him. You saved her. She stared into her cup. He wasn't always mean. First, he was nice. He brought us here from Indiana. He said he'd take care of us. But then, her voice trailed off. Rourke let the silence hang. I wasn't allowed to talk at school, she continued quietly. If I talked, he said he'd know. He watched me. How did you manage to write the note? He asked softly. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a crumpled piece of lined paper, the mate to the one he'd found earlier. I wrote it in the bathroom. I hid it in my sock until I got to the office. And you gave it to the secretary? Lily shook her head. No, I dropped it behind the chair on purpose. I knew someone would find it. Maybe a nice person. Rourke's chest ached. This girl had taken a chance, her only one. Do you know where he came from? He asked. How long he kept you both locked away? Lily shrugged. It started after Christmas. Mom tried to leave once, but he caught her. That's when she got locked in the basement. After that, he told me if I didn't smile and act happy, she'd never come back upstairs. Rourke felt a wave of rage rise inside him but kept his face calm. I'm going to ask you one last thing, Lily, and you don't have to answer if it's too hard. She nodded slowly. Did he ever hurt you? Lily hesitated. Then she whispered, not like he hurt her, but he said if I wasn't perfect, I'd go in the dark too. Rourke closed his eyes briefly, fighting the urge to slam his fist into the table. Okay, he said gently. Thank you for telling me. You're safe now, and we're going to make sure you stay safe. A social worker arrived shortly after to begin the official process, temporary protective custody, psychological evaluations, and maybe eventually foster care. But Rourke made one thing clear before she left the station. I'll be checking in, he told the social worker. Personally, she's not just another case file. Lily looked back at him one last time as she left the room. For the first time that day, she smiled that IT was small. But it was real. 2 days later, Officer Rourke sat at his desk, buried in paperwork. The case had escalated far beyond a routine welfare check. The man he arrested, Richard Vance, had no prior record in Ashbridge, but deeper investigation revealed a disturbing trail. Multiple aliases, 2 previous addresses tied to domestic disturbances, a sealed custody battle in Indiana. But it was what they didn't find that troubled Rourke most. There were no official records of Lily's birth, no school records prior to Ashbridge, no trace of her existence before her arrival in town 3 weeks ago. She's a ghost, Detective Maynard muttered, tapping the file. This guy was hiding her in plain sight. Rourke leaned back in his chair. He isolated them, made sure nobody could track them. If Lily hadn't slipped us that note, we'd still be in the dark. Maynard rubbed his jaw. Makes you wonder if there were others before them. This guy moved around a lot. FBI's already involved now, Rourke said. They're digging into his aliases. Just then, Carla from dispatch leaned into the room. Tom, got a call from county. The hospital's discharging Lily's mother, Marissa Garrison. She asked if you could be the one to pick her up. Rourke didn't hesitate. Tell them I'm on my way. Marissa looked gaunt, but her posture was stronger than before. Her bruises were fading, and the haunted look in her eyes had softened. She stood waiting at the entrance of the county hospital, bundled in a donated coat, clutching a paper bag of her belongings. Officer Rourke, she said as she got into the cruiser. I didn't think I'd ever see daylight again. Or my daughter. You both made it, he replied. Thanks to her. As they drove through the winding back roads of Ashbridge, Marissa opened up. He started changing after we moved to Indiana. Isolated us. Took away my phone. Wouldn't let me speak to my family. When I finally tried to run with Lily, he caught us. That's when he said he'd rather bury us than let us leave. She looked out the window, voice breaking. I was locked down there for almost 6 weeks. Lily snuck food to me when she could. He didn't know. She'd pretend to lose her toys in the vents and push granola bars through them. Rourke's grip on the steering wheel tightened. I kept praying she'd find a way. I never thought she'd be the one to save me, Marissa said, eyes glassy. She's just a child. She's more than that, Rourke replied. She's a survivor. When they arrived at the temporary shelter where Lily had been staying, Marissa's face lit up the moment she saw her daughter on the porch, drawing with chalk. Lily stood up slowly, unsure. Then Marissa opened the car door and ran to her. They embraced tightly, silently. No words were needed. Rourke stayed back, watching the scene, his heart full but heavy. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be legal battles, therapy, questions they'd have to answer. But for now, they had each other. For now, they were safe as they sat on the porch together. Lily looked up at him and asked, "Will the bad man ever come back?" Rourke crouched down beside her. "No, sweetheart. He's never going to hurt you again. I promise." And he meant every word. The days turned into weeks. For most of Ashbridge, life went on. But for Officer Tom Rourke, the Garrison case never strayed far from his thoughts. He kept the note Lily had written. "My mom is in danger. Please help. Don't tell the man." Folded in his wallet, a painful reminder of what vigilance could uncover, and what silence could bury at the station. The FBI had shared their latest findings. Richard Vance wasn't just a twisted drifter. He was a man with a long trail of manipulation, abuse, and near escapes. He moved state to state, changing his name each time. Agent Neal explained during a joint briefing. There are at least 2 other women who disappeared after dating a man fitting his profile. One in Missouri, another in Pennsylvania. We can't prove anything yet, but your girl's note may have opened a much larger investigation. Rourke nodded grimly. He had a pattern. He kept them hidden, controlled. Lily and Marissa might be the only survivors willing and able to testify. And if they do, Neal added, he's looking at federal charges. Life without parole. The thought was satisfying, but not enough. Rourke had seen too many cases fall apart in courtrooms. He needed to make sure the Garrisons had more than just a temporary solution. That night, he made a visit to a small farmhouse on the outskirts of town, where Lily and her mother were now living under protective custody. Marissa answered the door, her features softer, color back in her cheeks. "Tom," she greeted with a grateful smile. "You've done so much already." "I'm not finished," he replied. "Mind if I come in?" Inside, the house was modest but cozy. Lily sat on the floor with a puzzle, her hair in a loose braid. She lit up when she saw Rourke. "You're back," she said. "Of course," he said, crouching beside her. "I told you I'd check in." Marissa made tea while Rourke sat and talked with Lily, who was slowly learning to be a kid again. She showed him her drawings, one of a police officer, standing tall between 2 smiling stick figures, a mother and daughter. "That you?" he asked with a grin. "Yep. You saved us," Lily said proudly. Rourke's smile faded slightly. "No, Lily. You saved her. I just followed the note." When Marissa joined them, Rourke brought up what was weighing on his mind. "I want to help you 2 long-term. The court process can take time, and the shelter can only offer temporary protection. Have you thought about what comes next?" Marissa's face dimmed slightly. "Not really. I don't have family. Not anyone I can go back to." He made sure of that. Rourke pulled a card from his jacket pocket. "There's a program in upstate New York, the Phoenix House. There's a full support network for survivors of domestic abuse. Housing, job training, therapy for both of you. They specialize in cases like yours. I've already made a call. They'll take you no cost." Marissa took the card, hands trembling. "You'd do that for us?" she asked. "You don't owe me anything," Rourke said. "Just give Lily a real childhood. That's all I ask." Lily looked between them, then leaned in and hugged him tightly. "You're like my hero," she whispered. Rourke felt a lump rise in his throat. He patted her back gently. "I'm just glad you wrote that note, kiddo." 3 months later, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Reporters packed the benches in the back. The case of State versus Richard Vance had made national headlines. The girl who spoke with a note was the lead on every network. Lily and Marissa Garrison were set to testify. Officer Tom Rourke stood outside the courtroom dressed in his formal uniform. He had taken time off from regular duty to be there. Lily emerged from a nearby witness room holding her mother's hand. She wore a soft blue dress, her hair in a neat ponytail, and a tiny silver bracelet, a gift from a counselor who'd been helping her heal. Rourke knelt down to her level. "You okay?" She nodded, but her eyes darted toward the courtroom doors. "I'm nervous." "That's normal," he said gently. "But you don't have to be scared. You already did the hardest part, telling the truth. All you have to do now is be brave like you were that day in the school office." "What if he looks at me?" she asked. Rourke's expression hardened. "Then you look right back. Because he doesn't get to win. Not anymore." Inside, the court fell silent as Lily was sworn in. Her voice trembled at first, but she answered clearly, recounting the months of fear, the rules she had to follow, the code words and threats. When she explained how she'd snuck the note into school, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "She was in the basement," Lily said softly. "I could hear her crying. He said if I told anyone, she'd disappear forever." Rourke clenched his jaw, watching from the back row. Even after everything, it was surreal hearing it laid out in public, the horror she'd endured and the courage she'd shown. Then it was Marissa's turn. She testified to the physical abuse, the manipulation. How Vance had stripped away every piece of her autonomy. She detailed the first time she tried to escape and the chilling consequences that followed. When Lily was born, Marissa said, "I promised her she'd grow up in love and safety. I failed. But she never gave up on me. My daughter saved my life." The defense tried to paint Vance as mentally unstable, a man under pressure. But the jury saw through it. The photographs from the basement, the scars. Lily's handwritten note, presented as evidence and read aloud by the prosecutor. It all added up to one thing: conviction. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty on all counts: kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, assault, and attempted homicide. As the judge read the sentence, life without the possibility of parole, Vance remained expressionless. But Rourke could see it, the defeat in his eyes. For once, his control was broken. The monster had been caged. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. But Marissa and Lily didn't stop. They walked straight into the sunlight, hand in hand, past the flashing cameras. Rourke followed, keeping close until they reached the waiting SUV. Lily turned before getting in and waved. "Bye, Officer Rourke," she called. "We're gonna plant a garden in New York. I'm gonna name a flower after you." He smiled, placing a hand over his heart. "I'll be looking for it." And with that, the door closed and they drove away. Rourke stood alone on the steps of the courthouse, the chaos behind him fading. The case was closed, but Lily's story, it was just beginning. Winter had settled over Ashbridge by the time Officer Tom Rourke received the first letter. It came in a pale pink envelope, hand-addressed in careful, uneven block letters. No return address, just the faint smell of vanilla and crayons. He smiled as he tore it open. "Dear Officer Rourke, hi. It's me, Lily. Mom says it's okay to write you now. We're doing good. The house here is really nice. There's a lady named Ms. Carla who helps us with school and therapy. She has a big dog named Muffin who likes belly rubs. I planted my garden like I said. It's winter so not much is growing, but I put seeds in the dirt and named one of the pots Tom Flower. It's gonna be the bravest one. Just like you. I miss Ashbridge sometimes. I miss your smile and the way you always knelt down so I didn't feel small. But I'm happy here. Mommy smiles a lot now. She sings when she cooks. I think she's healing. Thank you for reading my note that day. Thank you for believing it. You changed everything. Love, Lily." Rourke folded the letter carefully and placed it in the top drawer of his desk, right next to her original note. He sat back and let the stillness of the station wash over him. Outside, snow flurries danced under the glow of a street lamp. He hadn't realized how much that case had stuck with him, how deeply it had crept into the corners of his life. He kept thinking about how close they came to never knowing. If the secretary had swept up earlier, if the janitor had tossed the note, if Lily had been too afraid to write it, but she had, and someone had listened. Weeks passed, and more letters came. Each filled with scribbled drawings, stories about Muffin's antics, updates on Lily's garden, and little questions like, "Do you like chili dogs?" and "Have you ever ridden a horse?" Rourke responded when he could, short, kind notes scribbled on department stationery. Then, one day, he received a small package. Inside was a tiny clay pot painted with stars and stripes, with soil and a sprout barely poking through. A folded card rested beside it. Rourke folded the letter carefully and placed it in the top drawer of his desk, right next to her original note. He sat back and let the stillness of the station wash over him. Outside, snow flurries danced under the glow of a street lamp. He hadn't realized how much that case had stuck with him, how deeply it had crept into the corners of his life. He kept thinking about how close they came to never knowing. If the secretary had swept up earlier, if the janitor had tossed the note, if Lily had been too afraid to write it, but she had, and someone had listened. Weeks passed, and more letters came. Each filled with scribbled drawings, stories about Muffin's antics, updates on Lily's garden, and little questions like, "Do you like chili dogs?" and "Have you ever ridden a horse?" Rourke responded when he could, short, kind notes scribbled on department stationery. Then, one day, he received a small package. Inside was a tiny clay pot painted with stars and stripes, with soil and a sprout barely poking through. A folded card rested beside it. "Dear Officer Rourke, this is a tomflower. It's from my garden. I saved the best one for you. It's small now, but it's strong. Just like you were for us. I hope you take care of it. And when it blooms, you'll remember how one little note can grow into something big and beautiful. Love always, Lily Garrison." Rourke stared at the sprout for a long time. Then he cleared off a spot near the window in his office, placed the pot in the sunlight, and watered it gently. "Grow strong, little one," he whispered. "Just like your girl." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by silence and snow, Rourke realized something. That little girl hadn't just saved her mother. She had changed him, too. Spring arrived in Ashbridge with a sudden burst of color. Tulips lined Main Street, and the frost that once clung to windshields had melted into warm breezes and longer days. Officer Rourke's tomflower now stood tall on his office windowsill, blooming in full, a brilliant, defiant orange that drew the eye of everyone who passed by. But Rourke wasn't at the station today. He stood on the stage of the Ashbridge Community College auditorium in front of a sea of young, expectant faces. Future officers. Students in Criminal Justice 201, a guest lecture series. He adjusted his mic and cleared his throat. "My name is Officer Tom Rourke. I've served here in Ashbridge for over 15 years. I've seen a lot: accidents, robberies, violence. But what I want to talk about today isn't tactics or paperwork. It's about listening." A hush fell over the crowd. He held up a laminated slip of paper. "This note," he said, "was handed to a school secretary by an 8-year-old girl. It says, 'My mom is in danger. Please help. Don't tell the man.'" Gasps rippled through the room. That one sentence, that handful of words, changed everything. "We found her mother locked in a basement. Her abuser, someone hiding in plain sight, was arrested, tried, and sentenced to life. But it wouldn't have happened without this." He tapped the note gently. "Law enforcement isn't just about catching the bad guys. It's about recognizing the quiet cries, the signs we're trained to overlook. That's what I want you to remember." He paused, scanning the room. "There will be moments in your careers when the biggest clue won't be in a database. It'll be in the eyes of a scared child. In the silence of someone too broken to speak. You'll have to be the one who hears what no one else does." A student raised their hand. "What happened to the girl?" Rourke smiled. "She's thriving. She and her mom live upstate now. We write letters. She sent me a flower she named after me." He turned back to the crowd. "She was the hero. I just followed her lead." After the lecture, students lined up to shake his hand. Some asked questions. Others just nodded in respect. Later, as he walked to his cruiser, a young woman jogged up to him. She looked barely 20, clutching her notebook. "Officer Rourke?" "Yeah? I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that. My mom was in a situation like that when I was little. No one believed her. It didn't end as well. But hearing that this girl got out, it meant something." Rourke softened. "I'm sorry for what your family went through. But I'm glad you're here. You gonna be a cop?" She nodded. "Yeah. I want to be one of the good ones." "You already are," he said, then tipped his cap and headed off. As he drove through town, he passed the school where it all began, the elementary where Lily had slipped the note into a stranger's hand and changed her fate. A new mural was being painted on the side, a field of colorful flowers beneath a wide blue sky. He slowed down, rolled down the window. And the corner of the mural, painted in bright crayon-style lettering, was a phrase: one voice, one note, one hero. Rourke smiled and drove on. 2 years later, Ashbridge had changed in small, quiet ways: new stoplights, a renovated park. The coffee shop on Main now served oat milk lattes. But some things never changed. Officer Tom Rourke still wore the same beat-up badge, still made his morning rounds with coffee in hand, and still kept that tiny, brave orange flower on his office windowsill. Though by now it had withered, its legacy outliving its leaves. It was mid-June when a formal envelope arrived at the precinct, addressed simply, "To Officer Tom Rourke, Ashbridge Police Department." He opened it slowly. Inside was an invitation, printed on thick cream-colored paper. You are cordially invited to attend the Community Heroes Luncheon, hosted by the Phoenix House Foundation. Honoring Officer Thomas Rourke for exceptional service, compassion, and bravery in the line of duty. At the bottom was a personal note in handwriting he knew instantly. Please come. I have something to show you. Lily Blossom. A week later, Rourke made the drive north. It was his first time seeing the Phoenix House, nestled on a hillside, surrounded by green pastures and a sprawling garden. When he stepped out of his cruiser, the smell of lavender and sunflowers hit him like a warm breeze. A staff member guided him through a garden trail lined with signs, each one bearing names of survivors who had planted flowers in honor of their stories. At the end of the path stood Lily. She was 10 now, taller, stronger. Her hair was longer, and her eyes held a quiet confidence. She wore a sundress and sneakers, and her smile still crinkled in the same familiar way. "You came!" she shouted, running over and throwing her arms around him. Rourke hugged her tight. "Of course I did." She pulled back and took his hand. "Come see." They walked toward a small corner of the garden. There, surrounded by rows of zinnias, daisies, and lilies, stood a wooden sign hand-carved with a child's lettering, "The Tomflower Garden, for the ones who listened." Rourke's breath caught. "I planted this with the other kids," Lily said proudly. "Some of them were scared like I was. Some didn't even talk before. But we all planted together. This is where we come to feel brave." He knelt beside the sign, fingers brushing the engraved letters. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. "Yes, you do," Lily said firmly. "Because you didn't just save us. You believed us. That's different." He looked at her, really looked, and saw not a victim, not even a survivor. He saw a leader, a light. "Are you going to be a police officer one day?" he teased gently. "No," she grinned. "I want to be a teacher, so I can help kids like me speak up." Rourke chuckled, standing tall. "You'll be amazing at it." The luncheon was held under a tent strung with fairy lights, with survivors, advocates, and officers sitting side by side. Rourke received his plaque humbly, saying only, "I didn't save a little girl. I just listened to one who was already a hero." Later that afternoon, as he prepared to leave, Lily handed him a new envelope. "This is for the next kid," she said. He opened it. Inside was a simple card that read, "If you're scared, it's okay. Write it down. Somebody will read it. Somebody will come." And beneath it, in small script, "Pass it on, Officer Rourke." He slipped the card into his wallet, right next to the original note, and nodded. "I will." Then he got into his cruiser, rolled down the window, and gave her one last wave. "Take care, Lily." "You too," she called back. "And don't forget to water the new tomflower." As he drove back toward Ashbridge, the road stretched long and quiet before him. But inside, he carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken stories, and the voice of one girl who had written just 12 words and changed everything.